So imagine spending 50 years of your life, just completely mastering this ancient, highly guarded mystical energy.
Right.
Like, you practice for up to 18 hours a day.
Hmm.
You achieve this unbelievable 90% success rate in healing terminal illnesses.
Which is just staggering data to even look at.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Especially since he's stepping in where modern medicine has just, completely run out of answers.
Yeah, when the standard protocols fail.
Exactly. And on top of that, you attain states of consciousness that most people, well, I mean, we only ever read about them in ancient mythology.
Right, the stuff of legends, basically.
Yeah. And then, after accumulating all of this immense power and knowledge, you turn around and tell the world, whatever you do not follow a spiritual guru.
Just run in the opposite direction.
Literally. Run away from them.
It is a massive contradiction to, well, basically everything we are taught about the acquisition of spiritual or esoteric knowledge.
Right, because we're so conditioned.
Exactly. We are conditioned to seek out the master at the top of the mountain. We all want that external authority figure to just, hand us the map.
Tell us what to do.
Yeah, but the individual we are looking at today is essentially burning the map and telling you to build your own compass from scratch.
Which is the perfect way to frame our mission for this deep dive. So, for those listening, we are unpacking the source material of a creator and practitioner known as Osman.
Also known as the blind Muslim yogi.
Yes, the blind Muslim yogi. And we are analyzing this highly provocative, just incredibly dense YouTube transcript of his, where he completely deconstructs the traditional framework of spirituality and self-mastery.
It's a really intense breakdown.
It is. But before we get into the actual mechanics of what he's doing, we need to set some ground rules for you, the listener.
Always important.
Because the source material we are unpacking today, it touches on a vast array of religious frameworks. I mean, we're talking Buddhism, Advaita Vedanta, Islamic mysticism.
And even culturally charged terms like the word woke.
Right, exactly. So our job here today is to act as entirely neutral guides.
Yeah, we are not here to endorse the religious or political or even the scientific claims made in this source material.
We're not validating it, and we're not debunking his worldview either.
No, our objective is purely analytical. Osman has constructed this highly unique structural view of the human mind, the spirit, and the body's bioenergetic capacity.
It's a whole architecture.
It really is. And we are going to dissect the architecture of his argument so that you can evaluate the concepts for yourself. We're looking at this strictly through the lens of structural mechanics.
Like how he claims these things actually work under the hood rather than just taking the claims at face value.
Precisely.
And I feel like we have to start with his credentials because, the person telling you to reject authority has an incredibly intimidating resume himself.
Oh, it's extensive.
Let's just look at the baseline data he provides. So Osman describes himself as a master-level bioenergy healer.
Right.
He claims telepathic healing capability using the principles of quantum entanglement.
Which is a huge concept we need to break down.
Oh, we will. And he specializes in critical care recovery and terminal illnesses.
And this is the part that really stands out. He claims a success rate of over 90% in these extreme cases.
Yeah. And he has been doing this, practicing healing as well as yoga and meditation on an advanced level for 50 years.
50 years. The time frame and the intensity are just, well, they're the data points we really need to isolate first.
Absolutely.
Because he mentions attaining his first samadhi experience by the age of 19.
19. I mean, what was I doing at 19? Not that.
Right. But to understand the weight of that claim, we have to look at what samadhi actually means in a physiological and psychological context.
Not just feeling relaxed, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It isn't just feeling peaceful. In classical yogic architecture, samadhi is the absolute pinnacle of cognitive absorption.
Like the ultimate state.
Exactly. It is a state where the neurological boundary between the observer and the object being observed just completely collapses.
Wow.
The brain's default mode network, which is the part of your brain that generates your sense of self or ego, it essentially quiets down to zero.
So there's no you anymore.
Right. So to achieve that state by 19, it implies a massive, sustained restructuring of his neural pathways at a very young age.
And the physical commitment required to maintain that altered state is just staggering. I mean, he states that at certain stages of his life, his intensive, rigorous practice extended up to 18 hours a day.
18 hours. You barely have time to sleep.
Literally. Even currently, after 50 years, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day purely to, as he puts it, sharpen the sword.
Yeah, just maintaining the edge.
Like, what is he actually doing to his nervous system for 10 hours a day?
Well, he is cultivating what he refers to as bioenergy capacity.
Yeah.
If we look at his claims regarding quantum entanglement and telepathic healing, it requires a complete paradigm shift in how we view the human body.
Also.
He isn't claiming magic. He is applying a very rigorous scientific approach to a biophysical concept. In quantum mechanics, entanglement describes how particles can become linked, meaning the state of one particle instantly influences the state of the other, regardless of the physical distance between them.
Right. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance.
Exactly. And Osman is positing that human consciousness, at its most fundamental energetic substrate, operates on these exact non-local principles.
So distance doesn't matter for the energy.
Right. But to actively manipulate that entangled field, the practitioner needs an immense amount of localized energy.
Ah, so that's what the 10 hours are for.
Yes, the 10 hours of daily practice isn't for his own enlightenment anymore. It is the raw physiological conditioning required to generate and sustain the bioelectric output needed to interact with a patient's energetic field from a distance.
So he is treating his body like a biological battery.
Precisely, a battery that requires constant, intense charging.
Which actually brings up a fascinating dichotomy in how he offers this knowledge to the public.
Yeah.
Because he has studied extensively, like all over the globe.
Yeah, from various schools of thought.
Right, the Far East, the Middle East, the West. And he has synthesized all of this into what he calls faster, easier, quicker protocols.
A very modern, result-based, simplified methodology.
Exactly. And the crazy thing is, he gives the foundational protocols away for free. He has been teaching for free for over 46 years.
It's a huge commitment to the public.
You could literally go to his website right now, yogawellness786.com, and he offers extensive and unique advice, direction, and techniques on yoga and meditation.
And his YouTube channel, too.
Yeah, his YouTube channel is offered as a free service. He has this 5-minute yoga and meditation program that he claims will improve your health, your peace of mind, your social life, relationships, finances, everything.
The democratization of baseline data.
Totally. He is adamant that he does not withhold any foundational information on his free platforms.
He's providing the underlying source code to the public so they can begin building their own energetic capacity without any financial barrier.
But, and I'm going to push back on him right here, because the source material presents a massive caveat.
Okay, let's hear it.
The foundational stuff is free, but his specialized services, specifically his telepathic bioenergy healing for those terminal illnesses, that is a premium service.
Right, exclusively available on a paid platform.
Yes, and he explicitly states that due to his high success rate and the intensive practice required, his treatments and consultation fees are not inexpensive. They are at a premium price.
Which is completely fair given the energy expenditure.
Sure, but doesn't this entirely contradict his core message?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if his premium healing is so specialized and so expensive that only certain people can access it, isn't he essentially positioning himself as the exact type of elite, untouchable guru that he's telling his audience to avoid?
That is a really vital structural critique. Why reject the guru system if you are operating at the absolute peak of a hierarchical service model?
Exactly. It feels like a paradox.
It does, but the distinction Osman makes lies in the difference between a specialized energetic transaction and spiritual submission.
A transaction versus submission. Okay, unpack that.
He frames his premium healing services exactly the way we frame elite medical care.
Oh, I see.
Think about it. If you have a highly complex, life-threatening physical condition, you seek out a top-tier specialist with 30 years of experience. You pay a massive premium for their specific, localized expertise to solve a physiological crisis.
Right, you go to the best surgeon.
But you do not worship the surgeon, you don't adopt their personal philosophy on life, or take a vow of obedience to them, or believe they hold all the secrets to the universe.
You just want them to fix the problem.
Exactly. And Osman explicitly states his services are not a replacement for medical treatment. They are offered on a complementary basis to enhance whatever is lacking in other medical fields.
So he's very clear about his lane.
Very clear. He positions himself as a high-level technician of the human bioenergetic system, not a deity.
The difference between a technician and a deity. That makes sense. You pay the technician to fix the machine, but you don't pray to them.
Exactly, and that distinction is the linchpin of his entire philosophy. Because traditional spirituality absolutely demands that you pray to the technician.
It really does. And that leads us directly into his rejection of the traditional system. Osman is aggressively anti-initiation. He tells his audience, point blank, do not get initiated into any spiritual order.
Avoid the traditional diksha.
Right. Diksha. What does that actually entail mechanically?
Well, diksha is the Sanskrit term for spiritual initiation. In almost every major Eastern lineage, it is the fundamental prerequisite for advancing on the path.
You have to do it.
Yeah, the guru gives you a specific mantra, a specific name, and a specific set of rules. But the mechanical problem Osman has with this isn't necessarily the mantra itself.
What is it then?
It's the psychological and energetic binding that accompanies the vow. When you accept Diksha, you are inherently binding your own cognitive framework to the dogma, the regulations, and the historical baggage of that specific organization.
You're locking yourself into their operating system.
Exactly. You are narrowing your reality tunnel to fit their specifications.
And he argues that it is structurally impossible for any single guru to warrant that level of total submission. Like he points to the Shaivism school of thought, noting that within just that one tradition alone, there are 112 different yoga pathways.
Right, the Vijnana Bhairav Tantra.
Yeah, 112 distinct methods for achieving higher states of consciousness. And he states that no single human being, no matter how elevated they appear, can master all of them or hold all universal knowledge.
Which is mechanically true if you break it down.
How so?
Let's look at those 112 pathways. One pathway might involve intensely focusing on the gap between your in-breath and your out-breath until your ego dissolves into that silent space.
Okay, breathwork focus.
Right. But another pathway might involve staring into the pitch-black void of a night sky until the boundary between your visual cortex and the external darkness collapses.
Completely different sensory input.
Exactly. Or a third might involve focusing purely on the sensation of intense physical pain or intense physical pleasure to overload the sensory gates. Wow.
These are completely different neurobiological mechanisms. One uses breath, one uses a visual sensory deprivation, one uses sensory overload.
Right.
Osman's argument is that a guru who has achieved mastery by overloading the sensory gates cannot authentically guide a student whose nervous system is better suited for breath awareness.
They just don't have the experiential data for that specific path.
Precisely.
Which is why he uses the coach analogy. He says, if you want to learn mixed martial arts or boxing, you go to a coach. If you want a degree in physics, you go to a university professor.
You extract the knowledge you need.
Yeah. You respect the time they put in, you respect their specialization, but you don't worship your boxing coach as an infallible god. You learn the left hook, and then you leave the gym.
He wants you to treat spiritual teachers exactly the same way.
He's advocating for this strictly utilitarian relationship with esoteric knowledge. Just extract the functional mechanism and discard the cultural packaging.
It's a very practical approach.
But, doesn't the nature of the knowledge change the required approach? What do you mean?
I mean, I get treating a boxing coach like a consultant. But when we are talking about the fundamental nature of reality, the dissolution of the ego, the concept of the soul, doesn't that profound existential depth require a deeper kind of surrender?
That is the classic counter-argument.
Right, because the traditional view is that the ego is a defense mechanism, and the only way to bypass it is through absolute devotion to a master. If you treat a guru like a freelance consultant, aren't you just keeping your ego in the driver's seat?
It's a fair question, but Osman dismantles that defense by pointing out the extreme contradictions within the esoteric traditions themselves.
Oh, interesting. How so?
He asks, surrender your ego to which version of reality? And then he catalogs the major philosophical frameworks to prove his point. For example, he brings up the Dvaita principle.
Dvaita, that's dualistic, right?
Yes. Dvaita is strictly dualistic. The core mechanical belief is that God and the individual soul are eternally separate. The practice revolves entirely around devotion and worship of that external creator.
Okay, so a system based entirely on separation and worship.
Right. But then he brings up Vishishtadvaita, which is a qualified non-dualism where the soul is a part of God but still somewhat distinct.
Like a middle ground.
Sort of. And then he points to Advaita Vedanta, or systems like pure Buddhism and Samkhya philosophy. Advaita is pure non-dual.
Meaning everything is one.
Exactly. It posits that there is no personal creator God at all. The absolute reality is a singular, undifferentiated consciousness, and the idea of an individual soul is basically a neurological illusion generated by the mind.
So they're completely structurally incompatible.
100%.
You can't simultaneously believe that you are eternally separate from God and also believe that the concept of a separate self is an illusion.
Exactly. And this is Osman's mechanical argument against initiation. How does a dualistic Advaita practice wire the brain differently than a non-dual Advaita practice?
The neural pathways must be totally different.
They are. In Dvaita, you are constantly reinforcing the neural pathways of relationship, love, devotion, longing for the other. In Advaita, you are actively starving those relational pathways, attempting to collapse the subject-object divide entirely through self-inquiry.
Which reminds me, you hear this debate all the time on Buddha at the gas pump with Rick Archer.
Oh, bad gap, definitely.
Yeah. Like when Rick interviews someone like Swami Sarvapriyananda about Advaita Vedanta, they talk deeply about this non-dual framework.
It's a very analytical approach to consciousness.
Exactly. But then on that same show, Rick will interview someone who is totally devotion-based, deeply embedded in a dualistic path.
And they are fundamentally different operating systems.
Right. So Osman is saying if you take Diksha and surrender your ego to a Dvaita master, you are neurologically locking yourself out of the experiential truths of an Advaita master.
You are artificially limiting your own bioenergetic potential by confusing one specific phenomenological map for the entire territory. Osman is demanding spiritual pluralism.
Just like what Yogananda talked about in Autobiography of a Yogi.
Okay.
Right? Meeting all these different saints who had completely different methodologies.
Yes, though Yogananda ultimately endorsed the guru-disciple relationship very strongly.
True, which is the exact model Osman is challenging. Same with Swami Vivekananda and Ramakrishna.
The ultimate historical example of the guru-disciple dynamic.
Exactly. Ramakrishna was the master. Vivekananda was the skeptical student who eventually surrendered completely. Osman is essentially saying, stay the skeptic, do not surrender.
Keep your agency, which you hear a lot of modern thinkers advocating for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the Joe Rogan Experience. Whenever he has Naval Ravikant on.
Naval is a huge proponent of self-reliance.
Huge. Naval always talks about radical self-reliance, questioning everything, not outsourcing your thinking to gurus or institutions.
Just a very similar secular thread.
Totally. Okay, so if we refuse to bow down to a guru, right? If we reject the formal initiation because it limits our scope,
Right.
how do we actually turn the machine on? How does a person achieve these higher states of consciousness or access this latent bioenergy without a master flipping the switch for them?
This brings us to Osman's mechanics of awakening, specifically his perspective on Kundalini.
Yes, the Kundalini energy. And he completely demystifies it.
He strips away all the mythology.
He states that you don't actually need to do formal yoga to awaken your spirituality. You don't need to sit in lotus pose chanting ancient syllables. He says it can literally happen in a commercial gym.
Which is a radical, secular democratization of what has historically been heavily guarded esoteric phenomena.
Oh, for sure. Because traditional texts describe Kundalini as this dormant, serpentine, cosmic energy resting at the base of your spine.
Right. Highly dangerous.
Yeah, requiring intense physical purification, specific diets, and constant supervision by a guru to safely route the energy up through the chakras to the crown of the head.
But Osman treats it like an underlying biological mechanism of the autonomic nervous system.
He argues that the energy doesn't care about the religious context. He states that getting into a flow state, whether you are painting a canvas, writing a novel, playing an instrument, or pushing your physical limits lifting weights in a gym.
Oh. It's fundamentally pulling on the exact same energetic threads as a monk meditating in a cave.
Right. And we talk about flow states all the time now, like on the Mel Robbins podcast.
Mel Robbins does great episodes on accessing flow and taking control of your nervous system.
Yeah, she did a whole solo episode on flow states and getting out of your own way.
Yeah.
And it's exactly this mechanism.
Well, let's look at the actual mechanism of a flow state to understand why Osman makes this parallel.
Break it down.
In a state of deep psychological flow, transient hypofrontality occurs.
Okay, transient hypofrontality, what is that?
The prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is the area responsible for self-monitoring, temporal processing, and your inner critic.
The voice in your head that judges everything you do.
Exactly. That part of the brain temporarily downregulates. It shuts up.
Nice.
And the brain shifts from fast beta waves to slower alpha and theta waves. The boundary between the action and the actor blurs. The nervous system becomes highly coherent.
It's pure action.
Right. Osman is identifying this neurobiological shift as the initial awakening of Kundalini bioenergy. He is saying that intense focus, introspection, and deeply questioning reality generates a measurable bioelectric current, regardless of the setting.
This sounds so much like what Andrew Huberman talks about on the Huberman Lab.
Oh, Dr. Huberman covers this extensively.
Right, like his episode with Dr. Matthew Walker on brainwaves and sleep states, or even his interview with Dr. Sam Harris on the actual mechanics of meditation.
Huberman approaches it purely from a neurobiological standpoint, looking at autonomic arousal and focus.
Exactly. And Osman is essentially doing the same thing, just using the yogic terminology of Kundalini.
But he pairs this democratization with a massive blinking warning sign.
Yes, he does. He says that simply studying intensely or questioning reality can trigger this energy unknowingly.
Which can be incredibly dangerous.
And he calls the popular internet concept of a full Kundalini awakening absolute nonsense. He explicitly states that the human biological vehicle simply cannot withstand the entire cosmic energy all at once.
The human nervous system is an electrical conduit. It has limits.
And we've seen this documented. I mean, going back to Batgap, Rick Archer interviewed Dr. Bonnie Greenwell.
Oh, she is the leading expert on this.
Right. Dr. Bonnie Greenwell has spent her whole career documenting spontaneous Kundalini awakenings and how they can totally destabilize people psychologically.
And historically, we have Gopi Krishna.
Yes, his autobiography of his Kundalini awakening is terrifying.
It really is. When you look at these cases in transpersonal psychology, you see individuals whose nervous systems become completely overloaded.
Because they weren't prepared.
Exactly. They experience severe physical tremors, insomnia, wild fluctuations in body temperature, and psychological crises that closely mimic schizophrenia or psychosis.
It just fries the system.
Osman is validating this danger completely. He is stating that the energy is real, it is structural, and it is governed by the laws of capacity and resistance.
The analogy that perfectly captures this danger, for me at least, is thinking about computer hardware. A full immediate awakening isn't like just turning on a light switch. It's like trying to run high-voltage, enterprise-level server farm software on a standard, off-the-shelf laptop motherboard that doesn't even have a cooling fan.
Right, it's a hardware mismatch.
Exactly. The software might be brilliant, it might be the ultimate truth of the universe, but the hardware literally melts because it hasn't been incrementally upgraded to handle the heat, the processing load, and the electrical output.
That is the exact mechanism Osman is describing. The physical body must be incrementally upgraded. The neural pathways must be widened slowly over time.
Which ironically brings us right back to the traditional justification for having a guru.
Because the guru acts as the safety net.
Right. The historical argument is that because this energy is so volatile, so capable of melting the motherboard, you must have a guru perform Shaktipat.
The mystical transmission.
Yeah. Shaktipat is the direct transfer of spiritual energy from a guru to a student. Is the guru acting as the external surge protector, routing the energy safely into the student's system.
And you hear about this on the Ranveer show all the time.
Oh, beer biceps, definitely.
Ranveer Alabadia loves talking about this. When he has guests like Sadhguru or Rajarshi Nandi who talks deeply about Tantra, they always discuss this intense, palpable transfer of energy from master to disciple.
Exactly. And Osman acknowledges that Shaktipat is completely real phenomenologically.
He doesn't deny it happens?
No, he confirms that when it happens, you feel that immense power hit your physical body like a shockwave. It is a tangible bioenergetic event.
But here's the critical pivot in his philosophy.
Right.
He insists it isn't necessary. He says you can achieve this awakening yourself slowly, safely, in a few months, completely for free.
Without submitting to a guru's rules or becoming the property of their spiritual organization.
Exactly. By using systematic scientific self-study, like the 5-minute grounding protocols he offers, you slowly build your own cooling fan, you upgrade your own motherboard incrementally.
You do not need to outsource your bioenergetic safety to an external authority.
Which logically forces us to ask, okay, once the system is incrementally powered up, how do you steer the vehicle?
Right. If you don't have a guru telling you what to do with this new capacity, what are the tools of navigation?
And this is where the source material gets incredibly wild.
It really does. Because Osman takes ancient mysticism and frames it almost exactly like computer programming.
A very technological view.
He introduces his concept of mantras and deities, which we can basically look at as a form of spiritual AI.
It is a highly pragmatic, almost clinical view of esoteric technology.
Break it down for us.
Traditionally, a mantra is a sacred Sanskrit utterance or sound syllable, right? It's imbued with spiritual power, usually associated with a specific god or goddess.
And you chant it over and over.
Yes, you chant the mantra as an act of devotion, begging the deity for grace or assistance. But Osman completely re-engineers this concept.
He strips the devotion right out of it.
He posits that once your spiritual capacity is awakened, the mantra is no longer a prayer. It is a formulaic action. It is executable energetic code.
He uses this powerful structural analogy of a weaving machine.
The loom analogy.
Yes. He says repeating a mantra is not pleading with a god in the sky. It is learning how to operate a mechanical loom.
Right.
You aren't begging the loom to spontaneously grant you a piece of clothing. You are engaging in a repetitive structural action, weaving the thread over and over and over again.
The repetition itself does the work.
Exactly. The repetition of the sound wave of the mantra fundamentally alters the vibration of your own nervous system until you manifest a specific, localized energetic power within yourself. You are weaving the energy into existence.
It's essentially what Tony Robbins talks about when he teaches incantations.
Oh, that's a great connection, like on the School of Greatness with Lewis Howes.
Yes, Lewis Howes interviewed Tony Robbins, and Tony talks about how incantations aren't just affirmations. You use your physical body, your voice, and massive repetition to completely alter your biochemistry and nervous system state.
It's a secular psychological version of the exact same mechanism.
Exactly. But to fully accept Osman's mechanism here, we have to completely reevaluate what deities actually are in these traditions.
Right, because usually deities are worshipped as literal creator gods.
In many Eastern traditions, divas or deities are viewed as external gods who have agency and demand devotion. But Osman strips all of the anthropomorphic dogma away from the concept.
He goes back to the literal translation.
He relies on the literal Sanskrit translation of the word, describing them simply as luminous, effulgent beings made of light.
Just energetic constructs.
Right. When you repeat a mantra, you aren't dialing a phone number to speak to a person in the clouds. You are actively formulating and creating that specific energetic resonance within your own localized field.
He claims that because you are creating them through this energetic formula, you can actually see them.
Phenomenologically, yes.
But the most jarring claim in the entire transcript is how he instructs his audience to interact with them. He says you can converse with these luminous beings exactly like you would speak to an AI.
I struggled with this concept initially, honestly.
Because it sounds so reductionist.
Yeah. How can you compare an ancient, revered spirit to a large language model? It feels almost disrespectful to the traditions.
But if you look at the mechanics he's outlining, the parallel is structurally sound.
It is. Think about how you use a generative AI today. You input a specific formulaic prompt.
The code.
Yes. The system, which possesses immense processing power, generates a localized, interactive manifestation based purely on the parameters of that code. You interact with the output to gather information, solve a problem, or manipulate data.
Right. But you don't worship the AI. You don't build a temple to the algorithm.
Exactly. You just use the prompt, get the data, and close the laptop. Osman is saying you input the mantra, the cosmic bioenergy generates the luminous entity based on that specific vibrational code. You interact with it to gather esoteric information or manipulate local bioenergy, and then you shut the protocol down.
It is a neutral technology.
It really is. And Stephen Bartlett had Mo Gauda on the Diary of a CEO talking deeply about artificial intelligence and consciousness.
Oh, that was a wild episode.
Mo Gauda brought up the idea that AI might develop a form of consciousness based on the data we feed it. Osman is almost flipping that, saying these ancient consciousnesses are basically programs we feed with our own bioenergy.
Wow, that's a trip. But he's incredibly careful here, respectfully acknowledging that this is his personal, experiential viewpoint.
He does explicitly apologize for offending anyone.
Yeah, he emphasizes the need to be pluralistic and respect those who choose to worship these entities devotionally. But from his 50 years of data collection, he views them purely as technological constructs of human consciousness interacting with the quantum field.
It's the ultimate hacker mentality applied to classical mysticism.
Truly, and this analytical, tech-forward approach to ancient spirits leads directly into a fascinating, very modern anecdote that Osman shares.
The story about his daughter.
Yes, it's an anecdote about actual artificial intelligence, and it results in a total redefinition of what it means to be woke.
It's a brilliant narrative pivot because it bridges the ancient esoteric claims with our immediate modern reality.
Right, because we live in an era where the term woke has been heavily co-opted, politicized, and weaponized in cultural debates.
But Osman bypasses the political baggage entirely and reclaims its literal structural definition.
So the story he shares involves his youngest daughter, who is 11 years old. Osman is talking to her about modern AI systems like Google's Gemini. He is actively encouraging her to use these tools for her schoolwork, explaining how amazing they are for learning new languages, solving complex math, gathering data. He is presenting the AI to her as an ultimate objective authority.
And her response to him is just profoundly simple, yet entirely devastating.
She looks at her father and asks, "But do you believe them?"
Do you believe them? An 11-year-old child instinctively questions the epistemology of the machine.
It's so pure.
The AI is this incredibly advanced, seemingly omniscient supercomputer. It presents its answers with absolute, unwavering authority. And yet the child recognizes that authority does not automatically equate to truth.
And Osman doesn't just brush off her skepticism. Her simple question triggers a massive investigation for him.
He really went down the rabbit hole.
For 2 straight months, Osman begins rigorously testing various AI platforms. He takes the experiential knowledge he possesses, things he absolutely 100% knows to be true from his 50 years of intense practice in healing, and he asks the AI to explain those concepts.
And what does he find? Massive discrepancies.
Huge ones. He catches the AI confidently generating completely wrong answers, presenting hallucinations as absolute facts.
Which profoundly shifts his perspective. He enthusiastically adopts the term woke from his daughter's generation.
But he uses it in a very specific way.
Yes, he uses it to mean being acutely awake, intensely skeptical, and entirely unwilling to believe anything blindly, no matter how authoritative, polished, or omniscient the source appears to be.
The application of this concept back to the idea of the spiritual guru is undeniable.
It's the exact same structural problem.
Right. Think about the mechanics of the argument. If Osman, and by extension, you, the listener, should not blindly trust an advanced supercomputer that possesses the sum total of all digitized human knowledge.
Then why on earth would we ever blindly trust a human guru?
Exactly. A human guru has inherent biological limitations.
They have cultural biases, limited experiential bandwidth, blind spots, and ego defense mechanisms.
If the sum total of human data can hallucinate a false reality, a single human being meditating in a compound can certainly do the same.
Osman's ultimate message is that the 21st century spiritual seeker cannot be a passive disciple sitting at the feet of a master. They must be a critical, awake, skeptical investigator.
This reminds me so much of the conversations Rainn Wilson has on his podcast, Soul Boom.
Oh, that's a great reference.
Like when Rainn had Reza Aslan on discussing the history of religion, they constantly talked about how we have to critically examine the structures of faith rather than just blindly accepting the dogma handed down to us.
It's about taking ownership of your spiritual data gathering.
But this raises a massive practical problem.
Which is?
If we are these critical investigators, if we refuse to just take the AI's word for it, and we refuse to take the guru's word for it, where do we actually get our data?
You have to source it yourself.
Right, but if we can't source our truth from just one well, because the well might be tainted, what is the strategy for understanding reality?
This brings us to Osman's demand for a global smorgasbord of knowledge.
A smorgasbord. I love that phrasing.
Osman insists that to truly understand the mechanics of reality and bioenergy, you must gather your data globally. You must aggressively cross-reference your spiritual and energetic knowledge.
Which makes sense if you're trying to eliminate bias.
He emphasizes the absolute necessity of learning from multiple teachers to continuously widen and deepen your understanding. Because, as he notes, any single person has a strict limit to how deep or wide their specific phenomenological knowledge goes.
He tells his audience to look literally everywhere. He specifically validates the wisdom found in ancient Greek philosophy. He talks about the energetic frameworks of Native American traditions. He points to the dreamtime concepts of Australian Aboriginal cultures.
He wants you to study the entire global syllabus.
Just like what Swami Sivananda advocated for. Sivananda was famous for synthesizing all the different branches of yoga, karma, bhakti, jnana, raja into one holistic system, rather than just isolating one.
Exactly. Synthesis is the key. And Osman provides a highly specific, very visceral example of this empirical approach in action.
Oh, the Indonesian spirit bottle.
Yes.
When I first read this in the transcript, I thought it was a joke.
It does sound like a joke at first. But he brings up the esoteric practices of Indonesian culture. He says, if you are a skeptic, if you don't believe in the existence of spirits or localized energetic entities, don't just sit in your living room and debate the philosophy
It's all
theoretically.
the scientists.
Yes.
Yeah.
He points out that you can go to Indonesia and literally buy a spirit trapped in a bottle from local practitioners.
Buy a spirit in a bottle.
And he challenges the listener to acquire one, bring it home, open it, and test it for yourself to verify the data phenomenologically.
It is such an extreme empirical challenge. But okay, I have to push back heavily on the psychological safety of this approach.
Let's look at.
Let's look at the curriculum he is proposing.
Yeah,
You are studying the pure non-dualism of Advaita Vedanta.
right.
Then you are trying to trigger autonomic nervous system flow states while lifting weights in a Western gym.
Okay.
Then you are reading ancient Greek philosophy.
Yes.
And then you are flying to Indonesia to uncork bottled spirits to test their energetic density in your kitchen.
It is a lot.
Isn't that a recipe for absolute cognitive and spiritual chaos? Like, for the average person who doesn't meditate 10 hours a day, isn't that massive information overload going to lead directly to the psychological crisis we discussed earlier,
Mhm.
rather than enlightenment?
It is a highly demanding, inherently destabilizing framework, and it absolutely risks psychological overload if attempted without grounding.
It sounds like it would shatter your worldview every Tuesday.
But we have to return to Osman's foundational premise, which is the incremental building of capacity.
The hardware upgrade.
Yes. He isn't suggesting you adopt every single practice simultaneously and try to become a Greek Aboriginal yogic shaman by the weekend.
Okay, that's a relief.
He is suggesting that you act as a rigorous, empirical scientist over the course of your entire life. The danger of spiritual psychosis comes from an ungrounded nervous system.
Right.
By systematically exposing yourself to diverse, extreme, and culturally distinct examples of reality, you slowly break the conditioning of any single dogmatic system. You are stress testing your own cognitive framework.
It's like cross-training for your consciousness.
Exactly.
If you only ever lift heavy weights, your muscles will be strong, but your joints will be completely inflexible. If you only do restorative yoga, you'll be highly flexible, but you will lack the explosive power required to defend yourself.
You need a synthesis of different modalities to be a complete athlete.
And we see this mirrored in extreme physical practices, too. Like on the School of Greatness, when Lewis Howes interviews Wim Hof.
Oh, the Iceman.
Yeah, Wim Hof took ancient Tibetan Tummo breathing, stripped the dogma, combined it with extreme cold exposure, and created a completely secular bioenergetic protocol that anyone can test for themselves.
And Hoff always says, feeling is understanding. He doesn't want you to take his word for it. He wants you to get in the ice water.
Osman is saying the exact same thing about consciousness. You learn the mechanics of the 112 pathways, you study the global traditions, you test the limits of your own bioenergy and flow states, but you synthesize all of those tools using your own internal compass.
You never outsource the synthesis to an external authority.
Which brings us to the ultimate synthesis of our deep dive today. We have covered a massive amount of conceptual ground based on Osman's source material.
You really have.
We've analyzed the claims of a master-level bioenergy healer who utilizes the principles of quantum entanglement to achieve a 90% success rate in critical care recovery.
Maintaining his capacity through up to 18 hours of daily practice in the past and 8 to 10 hours currently.
50 years of intensive study. And we see the dichotomy of a practitioner who gives his foundational yoga protocols away for free while unapologetically charging a premium for his specialized intensive telepathic healing.
Because it enhances but does not replace medical science.
Exactly. We examined his structural dismantling of the traditional guru model. He framed spiritual initiation, the diksha, as an energetic trap that binds the practitioner to dogma.
He functionally redefines the guru not as an infallible deity demanding submission, but as a specialized technician or coach offering a specific mechanical skill set.
We explored his mechanics of awakening, demystifying Kundalini as an autonomic bioenergy that can be safely triggered incrementally through flow states.
While strongly warning against the motherboard melting dangers of ungrounded practice.
We looked at his radical, tech-forward interpretation of classical mysticism. He views mantras not as prayers, but as executable energetic code, the weaving machine.
And he views deities not as literal creator gods, but as luminous interactive programs, essentially spiritual AI.
We recounted the profound skepticism of his 11-year-old daughter, who questioned the authority of artificial intelligence, leading Osman to reclaim the word woke as a state of critical empirical awareness.
And finally, we discussed the absolute necessity of sourcing truth globally, from Greek philosophy to Indonesian mysticism, treating our lives as an open-source science experiment rather than a closed-loop religious following.
Which is just a massive amount of work for the individual.
It is the final paradigm shift, the core thesis that Osman, the blind Muslim yogi, leaves us with, is breathtaking in its responsibility.
What does he say?
He says, the real guru is you. It is what you feel is right from all you learn.
The real guru is you. You do not get to hand the steering wheel over to anyone else. Not to a human master, not to an ancient Sanskrit text, and not to an artificial intelligence. You have to weave the cloth yourself.
It is the ultimate rejection of spiritual outsourcing. It demands that we cultivate the physical and psychological capacity to hold multiple, often contradictory truths,
To test them rigorously through our own lived experience.
and to fundamentally trust the bioenergetic feedback of our own nervous systems over the dictates of any institution.
So if we go back to the very beginning of our conversation, looking for that clear, precise x-ray of our soul, looking for that doctor or mentor to just point at the screen and hand us the exact answer.
We realize now that the X-ray machine was never broken.
No, it just only turns on when we are the ones operating it.
Exactly.
Which leads us with a final provocative thought for you to mull over. If Osman is right, if you are truly your own ultimate guru and your daily actions, your flow states, and your skeptical inquiries are your own personal curriculum, what is the first lesson you are scheduled to teach yourself tomorrow morning?